Welcome back to part 2 of our summer series. Last week we talked about why rest is something we all deserve. But once we've finally slowed down, another question starts to surface. Who are we when we're not teaching? For so many of us, teaching isn't just our job, it's our identity. We spend 10 months pouring into everyone else, and somewhere along the way, it's easy to lose sight of the person behind the teacher. So today we're talking about reclaiming our identity. What fills your cup outside the classroom? And how can this summer be about rediscovering not just what you do, but who you are? Grab your coffee and settle into your favorite chair. We're so glad you're here.
This is going to be a hard one, Michelle. This episode is going to be probably our toughest to date because we're actually going to not let each other talk about teaching or being an administrator or being in schools or being an educator. We're going to talk about reclaiming our identity outside of the walls of a school and a classroom. And let me tell you, I know this is going to be hard because there's been a few times where my grade one crew, we call ourselves, have gone out for dinners or walks or, got together at people's houses. And we even just try sometimes putting a little caveat on, like, we're not going to talk about school for an hour. Then it's half an hour. Then it's like 15 minutes. And it's hard to get through it because your days are so entwined with your work days, right? As a teacher, and a lot of your connections with your colleagues and friends are because of school, but it is really tricky. It's hard.
It is so true. We were out and I asked one of my colleagues a question about work, but I said to her, I'm going to ask you this question, but we can only talk about it until we get to the river. And then we have to stop talking about work. So once we got to the river, we had to wrap it up. But also, I didn't tell you the funny thing was when we were out and about, we ran into 3 families that we knew from school. And so, of course, it just naturally brings you back to work. And it's so hard to not talk about being a teacher. It takes me back to when I was doing my practicum a long time ago. And one of the teachers said to me, Michelle, you need to have a life because not everybody wants to hear your teacher stories all of the time. And I still remember her saying that. And I was like, okay, note to self, have a life. But I still have to work hard on that to try to not talk about my job.
It's like when we go out for dinner with our husbands, right? Derek and Brandon are like, no teacher talk. Well, that lasts actually, we did pretty good last time not doing too much teacher talk because we had so much podcast talk. But
That's
yeah,
true.
it is hard. We go out with our families as well to kind of to shut it off. But we're going to do it today. So we're going to look into today who we are when we're not in school, the types of things that fuel us, the types of things that bring us joy. And my husband always says to me, okay, if you could give an elevator pitch about who you are, but you can't include teaching, what would you say? And it is really hard for me to think about that. Like, obviously, I'm a mom, I'm an outdoor enthusiast, I'm a sports lover, I'm curious, I'm a creator. So, those are things when I think about. But when I have to leave that other word out, it comes a little bit hard. So, if I were to ask you just kind of on the fly, Michelle, not to give me like not a perfected elevator pitch, but what kinds of things would you say about yourself just outside of the world that we are not going to talk about today?
I'm going to start to cry laugh because I felt like you just said my elevator pitch. It was like identical. I thought, oh my goodness, Nicole, that's so funny. Okay, so if I was to say, this is the hard part too, I think, Nicole, because we identify so much as teachers, but also so much as moms, right? So
Hmm.
sometimes I think, who am I when I'm not a teacher? And who am I when I am not in mum mode? Because a big part of my identity outside of teaching is that sports enthusiast cheering my kids on, right? That's a huge part of our lives. So for me personally, I would say that I am a yogi. I am a reader. I am a walker. I love to spend time outside. I am a creator. So, we both wrote books. We now have created this podcast. I never thought of myself as a creator. And actually, one of my former teachers, she was my high school French teacher, she commented to me on how great it was to see this creative side come out of me that probably she hasn't seen ever heard of since I was in school. And I thought that was a really nice observation. So I would go with those things, I think, that I've added on to your list.
And as we go through today, we're going to kind of do it in a way where we're going to ask each other the same question kind of back and forth and answer about getting to know ourselves a little bit better outside of the world of teaching. So these are questions that I'm going to ask you, you're going to ask me, and we're just going to kind of go off the fly about kind of who we are outside of that world. So, okay, Michelle, if you had a completely free weekend, okay, with zero family, zero household, zero professional obligations, what's the very first thing you would choose to do?
Okay, so if I was home alone without my family members, it happened the other night and it's such a rare occurrence. I think I would go somewhere. I think I would jet off and go somewhere, probably to the mountains or try to go camping or on a vacation to a beach somewhere because I was home for 2 hours the other night and I had so much to do. Don't get me wrong. I should have scoured the entire house. But what I did is I grabbed our dog and we went out for a really long walk. That's where I like to be. So I would head out somewhere outside, gather friends. Either way, I think I'd like to be outside. How about you?
I had no obligations, and I just had to worry about myself. I would most likely head out as well, get out of the house, but also try to connect with someone. I love connecting with people. So that's what brings me pure joy and happiness is being with people. So I would find a group of friends or a friend. And I also love to experience new restaurants. So I would probably ask them to join me at a new restaurant that I hadn't been to, or maybe one of my favorites. But yeah, just get out and connect because there's something about when I am feeling a little bit down or gray, I find that what lifts me up is being with some of my best people, my friends. And I just feel different after, a 2 hour conversation or a dinner date with somebody. I love that feeling. I also feel like I don't connect with Brandon enough. As you know, during the school year, it's crazy as the teachers that we're not supposed to be talking about today. But I think also dinner out with him or just a walk or a drive with him alone without the kids. Those are the first things I would do if I was to be given any choice.
I completely misunderstood the question. I need to get my listening comprehension intact here now that I'm on summer holidays. I felt like the question was about if my family was away, if they were all somewhere else. It was just me.
It
So
could be that too.
my answer would still be similar, but if I had the option to be with them or, of course, to go out with Derek, one of my favorite things to do is to also go to restaurants. I love food. I love trying new things or just eating in general. But Derek's always saying to me, "You always go to these restaurants with friends and we never go together." And it's so true because if I can go to a restaurant with friends, it's because he has the kids covered. He's taking them to all the places that they need to go. And then that's how I can sneak away and get that dinner in. But it's rare for us to go together. So I would definitely take him out for an end of the year dinner. Okay, my turn. What did you love doing when you were, say, 10 or 12 years old before life got really structured and scheduled?
I loved being on my bike with my friends and not having to come home until it was dark out. That was like the best. I really had a very amazing childhood in that we could basically do whatever we wanted, to an extent. But my parents knew, who I was with, which families we were around and what houses we were hanging out at. But mostly we were just riding our bikes around the neighborhood and playing on the playground and kind of making up different games. I don't know. I just was never home. I felt like there was always someone's parents around, whether it was my parents or my neighbors, or whatnot, my friends' parents, but we were out. That was like the way that we were called home. If it was dark out and the streetlights went on, then you have to head home. But other than that, like there was no cell phones. Your parents didn't really actually know where you were. But we were mostly on the bike trails, just hanging out. And I loved that carefree childhood of not really having to worry about anything, but always knowing where to meet your friends on your bikes after school until it was dark. I love that, just being carefree. How would you spend your time?
I love this question. So I am thinking when I was 10 or 12, my life was a little bit structured already. I'm guessing yours may have been too. I was a figure skater, synchronized skater. So we skated a couple of times a week at this point already. And of course, I had piano lessons. So I had a few things on the schedule as well. And our family did with my brother and sister in sports already at that age. But I was a farm kid. So I rode the bus to and from school every day. We were just 5 miles out, so not too far. My brother and I would ride our bikes those 5 miles on those summer days to go into the pool. And so on those days, I became a town kid and we could swim all day and then bike home. You'll love this. My brother would bring a rope. So when we were biking home and I got tired, he would tie his bike to mine so he could pull me a little bit on the highway. I don't even know that I would love riding my bike on that highway now because it seems way busier than when we were kids. But as a farm kid, I loved being outside. Nicole, I used to collect rocks. I had an ice cream pail and I would walk down the gravel road and collect rocks, pretty rocks that I loved, certain colored rocks that were special to me. And then I would go to the shed and sometimes I would smash those rocks with a hammer. My dad would let me put on his welding mask and I would smash those rocks open to see what crystals I could find. We had a ton of animals. So we had real horses, Nicole, on our
Should have been
farm.
friends when I was little. Where were you when I was in grade two?
Oh my goodness. We had 2 horses, we had cows, we had chickens, ducks, kittens, we had a dog, we had pigs on our other farm site. So we were out there a lot, whether it was doing chores or my friend Kate would come over and she loved to be with the animals. We would take baler twine and we would braid it. We would lead the calves around the farm. We had an ATV, so we would ride that around. And my brother and sister were always up to some adventure. So it was definitely an equal mix of chores and fun. I would really give anything, honestly, Nicole, to go back to those days because you don't appreciate it as much when you're in it as you do now looking back. But those are the things I love to do.
I love that. I love that. I can just picture you ride around on that ATV right now. Okay, my next question for you. So, when I spend time outdoors or in the natural environment, which I know you love to do too, there's many different options out there that you can kind of, participate in. But where do you feel the most grounded and at peace when you're outdoors?
I love to be near the water. So whether it's walking by the river or spending a day at the beach, I love the waterfalls in the mountains. Definitely spending time near the water for me is really important. It does make me think of one of the things I'm most afraid of is snakes, and I know that's the same for you. So I feel grounded and peaceful there, but I also feel a little bit on edge too, right? I've always got one eye open for those little creatures. About
Well,
you, where do you
they don't
feel?
exist near water. I just tell myself that. They don't
Yeah, right.
those creatures don't exist near water. I also love being near water too. I grew up on a lake at my parents' cabin pretty much obviously every summer, and so that's really special to me. But also, in addition to that, I love being amongst greenery, like lush greenery in British Columbia, where I'm from. And I love being able to not be able to see out. Like, if I really truly want to get away and feel completely at peace and grounded, I love a hike just far enough in that I can be alone still, but that when I look around, I can't see a road, I can't see cars, I can't see other buildings. You're just kind of in the forest by yourself, and that looking up at that canopy and you can just see the sun out of the top of the trees. I love that. I absolutely love that. I have a special little hidden gem that I've actually never shared with anybody, not even my own children or husband, in Shuswap, where I am from, not too far from my parents' cabin. And sometimes I'll just go there and sit for just 10 minutes. And I just love it. I just love being able to feel completely one with myself and I guess out in nature. And yeah, just that lush greenery everywhere, but also water nearby as well.
Of course, I knew you were going to say water too. I have to say that I am the opposite. And before you even started answering the question, I was thinking I've never spent a lot of time in the forest because I grew up on the prairies. And so something that is super calming for me is going home and being near the wheat fields and seeing the canola. I'm not a fan of barley. Barley and I don't get along. It's way too itchy, but I love to go on crop inspection tours. We call them CIs with my brother down the gravel roads to check out the beans and the sunflowers, the wheat and the canola. That just brings me a lot of peace. I love how on the prairie you can see those storms coming. So you can see the buildup typically from the west and you know what's coming. As a farming kid, we had to watch the weather all of the time. So I'm definitely a weather watcher. I don't love the wind, but I love a good thunderstorm.
I love that I'm learning more about you. I knew that you were a farm kid, but when you know someone's like something from their past, but you actually now put it together when you can visualize you and your family now, just knowing who your parents are and your siblings, like just you all growing up in that space. I love it.
You know what's funny, Nicole, is I had this, I still do. I hate the wind so much. It terrifies me. And as a kid, we would run to the basement, but we would also watch. So it was this equal mix of watching the storm and what was coming. And I liked to know what was coming. But also, we knew the safest place would be, of course, if we were under tornado watch to go to the basement. But my mom, she used to, I think she just got tired of hearing me complain and cry and whine and worry. And so she would say to me, if it was windy but not rainy, she would drive me out to the field to the combine and tell me I needed to crawl in with my dad and ride in the combine, that the wind was not strong enough to pick up the combine. And that's where I needed to be. And I believed her. And so my dad would see us coming in the truck. Oh, here comes Michelle. She has to ride with me because she's scared of the wind. Now I know that wind could pick up that combine, but that's where she got me out of her hair, I think, when I was so afraid. Okay, my turn. Nicole, what's a physical activity, sport, or hobby where you love the feeling of playing, regardless of whether you win or lose or you get a specific result?
Honestly, any sport I've ever played. I love hockey. I love ball. I love basketball, volleyball, all the things. I just love being part of a team. Honestly, I'm competitive, don't get me wrong, but I still play sports for the love of it. I love being around other people. I love the competition aspect of it. So, yeah, anything that as a child I could play, I would be in there like a dirty shirt. And being on a ball team now as an adult, and I also played hockey for a little bit into my adult years, and I would actually like to go maybe dabble back in that actually again. But I just love being part of a team and a sport and having fun and laughing. So I think any sport really I've kind of ever done, I would just play for fun for sure. What about you, Michelle? Are you going to go back to figure skating if you could?
No. I loved figure skating and it was such a huge part of my identity, but I would go back to synchronized skating where we skated as a team. I love that. And I think that we thrive together as a team, but as an individual skater, no, no way. Definitely not my forte. I love all sports. So it just makes me think of playing pickleball with my son the other day. I just love the pure joy of playing and watching them learn. And I don't care how good I am, right? I just want to play. And I love just laughing. So if it's a terrible play or if it's a great play, there's just so much joy in both of them. It makes me think of my friend Joan and I playing scooter hockey, where you ride around on those little scooters with those little mini hockey blades. We did this one day as a staff after school, and her and I were so fiercely competitive. I think we learned that about each other that day, but just the shrieks of laughter and the little trash talk along the way. It's so fun. We went golfing too the other day to a driving range, and I am terrible. You'll never ever want to golf with me. We haven't tried that yet together, but I'm awful and I love it. It doesn't even matter. It's just super fun.
I love this. I love that there's just so many things. We are a lot of things outside of teaching, right? We just have a few more questions left here before we wrap up. Okay. So if you were forbidden, Michelle, to talk about your career, let's say you couldn't talk about your career, couldn't talk about your family, anything like that at a social gathering, what would you describe what lights you up?
I can't talk about my family or my career
Just for this one question.
or my kids. What lights me up? Okay, I'm going to pick two. I'm going to pick sports and books. So definitely number one, sports. Definitely my other number one is whatever I've been reading, whether it's been a new children's book that I've discovered, not for school or my family, but for me, or a book that I'm reading. That often is the start of a conversation for me. I'm going to pick another one, and it's podcasts. So, whatever I've been listening to, I often start a conversation with, I just listened to this great podcast. This is what I learned. I just picked three.
That's okay.
Your
That's good.
your turn. Your turn.
What lights me up? I would say creating. Lately, it's creating. And I used to think to be a creator, you had to, be an actual physical artist where you could draw or paint or whatnot. But I'm learning that being creator is so much more than that. So I get for sure a little hit off of creating podcasts, creating books, creating different templates or whatnot that I share with others. Yeah, I love creating and sharing those creations with others. And then my other thing that lights me up, I would say, is just people. Just being around people, being able to connect. Like I said, like I think I get my energy from others. And sometimes I need a little bit of time alone, but not much. I would say I'm more of like a total extrovert that way and get my energy from others. So those are my two big things. And I wouldn't have said creating 5 years ago, which is interesting. So it's that, yeah, you evolve as you age, right?
It's so true. And I think creating has become such a big part of our identity. It started for me with me seeing you write your first children's book. I had that story in my mind and I could not put that into action until I saw this strong woman publish her first children's book and I was able to follow in your footsteps. I would say I would add writing, which is part of the creating. And I think for the creation of our podcast, a huge part of it is writing. And of course, talking. My husband would say, talking fuels you, Michelle. You talk all the time, which is here we are. It's why we're here.
Yeah, here we are. Actually, maybe that's why we're so happy all the time right now. We just get to talk for basically our second jobs here. Okay, let's end with this last question. And this is, I think, a hard one. It's a hard one. Do you want to go?
Sure. What does true rest look like for you when you're not just trying to recover from exhaustion? What does it look like when you're trying to actually fill your tank up with joy?
Yeah, I think that depends on the day. I think that if you ask me what brings me joy today, it's going to be different than what brings me joy tomorrow. And I know that's probably a cop out, but I think like today, for example, what brings me joy is podcasting with you this morning. It's also going to go watch my friends' kids play lacrosse this afternoon. It is connecting with some friends that we haven't seen in a long time tonight. So already on my docket today, I know that there's lots of joy coming. And then I also know that tomorrow I have a date day planned with my daughter. So that's going to bring me joy tomorrow. So I think it's just doing what I need to do for myself that day. That's, I think, what brings me the most joy is not depending on the joy from others, if that makes any sense. It's just bringing joy to myself about who's around me and intentionally planning my time. I think that's what brings me the most joy. What about you?
I would say it's an equal mix of those things. So, going for a walk, usually it's on my own, or going for a bike ride with my kids. We also have intentional day dates planned with each of our kids this week while my husband is working. Growing up, my friend would have an intentional day date with her mom, and the other sisters would come to our house. And then the next day, the next sister would go with their mom, and the other siblings would come to our house. And I just love that. So I think that's so neat that you have that planned as well. I do love my solo time too. So whether it's doing a yoga class or just working on a little project that I have going on at home, I like that too. But I like an equal mix of socializing because socializing fuels me too.
I think that we've summed up kind of a lot of how we are not just teachers, how we are many other things. And I guess my challenge to our listeners would be to shift the conversation away from teaching as much as possible this summer. If you can shift it back onto the things that bring you the most joy, the people that you spend the time with, to reclaim that identity back, if you will. And maybe you've already done so and that you're way ahead of Michelle and I. I'm not sure, but I know that that's the one thing that we struggle with a lot. So that's why we wanted to also talk about this today. So what kinds of ways can you shift the conversation back on yourself this summer?
In our next episode in the summer series, we are going to be talking about letting go of teacher guilt. We hope that you'll join us.
Thanks, everyone. Wait, is that the bell? The buses are rolling and we've got duty.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Teachers Next Door podcast. If you enjoyed this week's PD session, do us a solid. Leave a rating, 5 stars preferably, and a review. Think of it as giving us an A+ on our eval. It helps other listeners find their way to our neighborhood. As the kids say, please subscribe.
Do you have a burning question or topic you would like to hear about? Send us an email or message. Be sure to follow us on Instagram for show updates and details on future episodes.
This podcast was produced and edited by us, your teachers next door. No outsourcing here. The reality of all teachers. We do it all.
If nobody else has told you today, just remember, you are doing a great job. Catch you next time.
And we should mention, the ideas we share on this podcast are totally our own.